Good evening. Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to all the veterans and their families tonight, and thank you for joining us. Well, first up on the agenda is if there's any input, citizen input, open. All righty. Next on the agenda is the minutes for August 18th, which is in your packet. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to check through it. Are there any corrections or changes that we do need to make at this point?
I've got one somewhere that's not in that area.
On minutes.
Yeah.
At your last sentence down at the bottom, in paragraph B, it has, that's the one,
Last sentence.
you told me.
On what page?
Page 1 of 2. That was the one that you told me about. Yeah. Paragraph B, under reports.
It's under B?
You see reports, and there's A, with Mayor Piper, and then B, and it's the last sentence.
Okay. That's the correction. I said that, it says, if the council member had the Thrasher wants to be involved in the hiring process, I said the council should be involved. Not just me.
Okay, I will change that.
Okay.
Any other corrections or exceptions?
Mayor, under the executive session, the purpose of the executive session, and what that was announced, was for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, hiring of public officer, employee. Subsection C, the pursuant to attorney-client privilege to discuss matters of settlement claims pending litigation. That wasn't part of the executive session last week, so I think we can delete that subsection C from the minutes as well.
Okay.
So what are you saying that we don't need to point that out, or it's just assumed until it becomes an issue, or?
No, so there's several different reasons you can go into executive session.
Okay.
One of them is to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, or firing of an employee, which is what was the purpose of the last executive session. A separate reason is the attorney-client privilege to discuss pending litigation, settlement of claims, administrative proceedings. That was not the reason for the last executive session. And it wasn't, I don't believe, spoken by anyone. And the minutes are supposed to reflect what happened. So I think that whole paragraph C can be deleted from the minutes.
Okay.
I have one thing here, which says Councilman Crawley would like to discuss the city clerk position, salary caps on certain employees, finance committee, ethics board. I corrected it to make sure that we understood that it's not salary caps on certain employees. We need a salary guide to go by for all employees, not for certain employees.
Any other corrections? Is that it? So I guess at this point, I'd ask for a motion to, accept the minutes as amended during this session,
With the corrections as stated.
with corrections as stated. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. I have been working on, I've had several sessions for code enforcement as well as some of the permits. And it's been brought to my attention. There are those that would like to see changes made. I have sat down with your Veritas on multiple occasions. Presently, as in your packet, our present contract is set up for code enforcement, $50 an hour, and it's a minimum of 2 hours a week, and we can utilize them under that contract as much as we want.
2 hours a week?
2 hours.
That's minimum?
Minimum, yeah. But we can utilize them more if we want. We have had weeks where we've not called code enforcement. There have been no reports called in. If there is a report called in, either Sandra or Connie will do a work order on it and send an email to Bureau Veritas. And generally, Tarsha is the one that will respond. I guess there's been some talk with Hal from Bureau Veritas for doing another contract. The first time I sat down with him, it was, I believe, $75 an hour. Basically requesting 12 hours minimum per week, and the city would have to provide office space for an individual to be here. And it goes up from there. The second time, I believe it went to $90 an hour, so every time the negotiations start, the price goes up. So in your packet, there's also another company who is interested in working with the city for code enforcement, and that is I believe it's HIJK LLC, and that's owned by Kathy Henry Erb. And as you can see, they would provide it $40 per hour, which would be less. And then there's different tiers that we could do 18 hours a week, but it would be at $50 an hour. The code enforcement for 40, and for whatever number of hours we wanted to utilize them. But I don't think it's prudent to get the city into a contract where we would have to basically guarantee 18 hours. It doesn't matter, in my opinion, whether it would be HIJK, LLC, or Bureau Veritas. I think if there are problems in the city and it's reported to any one member of the council or me, I think we need to put that in as a work order, whether we phone call or we put it in writing, and then Connie and Sandra can notify the Bureau Veritas and we can utilize them more if that's what is felt necessary, moving the city forward. But I think $50 an hour is a lot more responsible than $90 an hour. But, you know, I think everyone has it in their packet, and feel free to, you know, look at it, talk about it, and I'd be happy to sit down and go over it at a later date.
I would like to say something. Has anybody reached out to Randy Gordon? I haven't talked to him in a couple of months, but that, you know, that might be another possibility, because Randy was doing all the code enforcement, and he was also doing all of the planning and zoning at the same time. And I know there was a little bit of animosity when Randy left, but I thought Randy did a great job with code enforcement and planning and zoning. It might be worth the city's time to reach out to him and see if he would be willing to discuss coming back.
Well, if you look at the pricing, 12-month projected, utilizing the HIJK, you'll be looking at an annual of $34,560. A code enforcement officer, on my research, makes closer to $40,000, and then we still got to put a vehicle under them. Then the city has to pay benefits, and then the city also has to pay the upkeep of that vehicle. So when you add all of those in, subcontracting that feature out, when they're providing the uniforms, the training, the vehicles. So if you looked at that contract for $34,560 is actually less expensive if we utilize them at the projected 18 hours of 12 months, $3,785 a month. And as I said, we're not utilizing them every single week, every day. We pay whatever we utilize. If we, as a council, feel that we need to utilize them more, then I'm open to that. But at this point, you know, we'd be paying more as a city to have an individual, and then we have to have a vehicle for that individual to drive. So,
What about the planning portion of it? If you consider the planning portion of that, and you add that in, plus we already have a vehicle. We already have a vehicle here. I mean, his old, you know, truck is still here. So, I mean, all of the elements are in place for him to return. I see the value in subcontracting this out, and I've actually been reasonably happy with Bureau Veritas, but what Randy was doing was, I think, a little bit more personalized service, you know, and I don't know, if we look at what we're paying Jerry, And, the 34,000, I think the value would be there. It's definitely worth, considering.
And I agree with Dwight on looking into it. We know what, Bureau Veritas is doing. And that's nothing, because Mayor, you know, you and me have been across the track. And we've looked at the mess that's been going on for 2 years. And the street is still full of metal. There's razor blades, there's glass out there. He has dumped oil in the street, and the list goes on. And Tasha, instead of her taking him to court, the last month, she didn't do one thing, because I followed back up with Hal. And I should have been able to sit down with Tasha and work it out, but we couldn't get anywhere, and I had to go over her head and go to Hal. And we've worked the problems out, except he has not been made to clean up one thing. There's about 15 tires laying on his front porch, and it looks like somebody backed up the garbage truck and dumped it. You've been over there and looked at it, because you and me piled up some of that, those bolts and screws and what have you, there in the street. Tasha said she couldn't do anything about the oil because she didn't see him dump it. All he done was move his vehicle
But
down into his yard.
what her argument is the legal aspect of code enforcement. If she hasn't seen them do it, it doesn't matter if it's the one down the street or across town. If-
Well, I can understand that part of it too, but I can't understand why he can't be made to pick that junk up where he tore those vehicles down over there and worked on them in the street. He even put a tent up there. And it's been going on for 2 years. And he's still not done anything. She told me that if he does one thing between court coming up, that is an improvement. Well, he did the one thing. He moved his truck out the street and pulled it down in his yard. Now, I'm not so sure about this, but I think that's where the school bus turns around. Over there is where all that mess is there. There's little children down below there that has to walk up that sidewalk to get on the bus, if the bus turns there. I saw them doing the dry run and they turned around there. Maybe they go on farther down. But they should be able to do more than that. Now, my problem, we worked through it. I got the fence permit to put the fence. We worked through it, trying to hide his mess. But there's too much over there to hide. And those children, the project is neat as a pin down there. Grass cut, yards clean, and they walk right up the hill and walk right into the mess. And that's just not right.
At this point, I'd say we bring Bureau Veritas in, but we have to follow the law. Am I correct, Counselor?
That's the easiest question you'll ever ask me. Yes, we have to follow the
Well,
law.
and I know we do, but how long do you give them? I mean,
Well,
for 2 years, well, he didn't do anything until he finally came to court back in, say, August. 1st of July, he came to court. And when he got to court there, Veritas had not passed the file on to the PD department, so they couldn't do anything to him. To give him another month. And that's when he moved his vehicle and he ain't done nothing since.
well, the only thing we can do is to continue to file complaints, but we have to follow that procedure. The other problem we have as council is we did not budget to bring on an individual like Randy Gordon as code enforcement or zoning, because it was agreed to utilize Jerry Weiss for what he's done up there, and I think for the $16,000, I think he earned every penny of it, and I think he did a fabulous job. We got a completely rewritten unified building code out of that $16,000, which consolidated 441 pages into 373 pages. We got permit fee upgrades. We also have the code, I believe it's a fee change for the codes, planning and zoning fees, and he follows it to the letter. I think that's pretty hard to argue with, but we do not budget for another employee into the zoning and planning office. So we're almost, as a council, I think, locked into utilizing what we've got, and when we do the budget for 2022, revisit it and say, as a council, you're not happy, and you want to budget an employee for that purpose. But there again, is that little SUV going to last next year? My understanding is it's got about 200,000 miles on it.
Mm-hmm.
So is that going to last? So we have to consider the council, an employee, the benefits, a vehicle, and the upkeep of that vehicle. So, but without going over budget, we can't hire an employee to do that particular job.
Oh, I'm not complaining about what Jerry done. I think he's did a good job, but I'm complaining because the ones that we keep an on are not doing a job.
Well, we have to inundate them with paperwork and force the issue, but.
Well, I filed a complaint. I mean, I hate that's coming in file one every week. I'm the one that filed the complaint over there on it.
Mayor, I have a couple of comments and questions. My first question is on the, and you may not know the answer to this. You may be a question for the vendor, but HIJK, their proposal.
Yes.
On page 3, we got, it says $40 per hour, as described in the meeting, which I'm assuming the difference between that and the 18 hours is $50 an hour. Again, I'm having to assume here is that for $40 an hour, the city would have to provide them with a cell phone, a decal for a vehicle, and an ID badge.
Yes.
Is that right?
Right.
And then $50 an hour,
They provide everything.
they provide everything, but we have to pay them a minimum of $18 an hour.
We'd have to bump up as just with the proposal from Bureau Veritas, it's in tiers. So my understanding is for the bare minimum 40, we provide some of the necessary gear at the $50 an hour with a minimum of 18. They'll provide everything for that. We've had weeks, I believe, that we've probably approached 18 to 20 hours. But then we've also had weeks where there were nobody called in, complained because limbs laying out in their cul-de-sac, or nobody complained because there's broken down vehicles parked in the next door neighbor's yard, sinking into mud, so.
So on this $40 an hour, is there not a minimum amount of hours?
I think it's based, like we're doing now with Bureau Veritas, my understanding is it would be as we utilize them. But we have to provide, like it says, about the cell phone and a badge, which we have badges over in the zoning office. Yes.
I think that's actually a typo. If you look at the minimum 18 hours, and then there's that 18 times 50, 720 per week. Actually, it's 18 times 40 is 720 a week. So I think that $50 number is just a typo.
Okay. It wouldn't make any sense to me. Why would it be a lesser amount with no required hours,
I think it's $40 an hour, and they're asking for a guaranteed 18-hour minimum.
That's what was kind of throwing me was, you minimum $50 an hour, 18 hours, and then $40 an hour with no minimum. Didn't make sense.
No, I think the 40 and the 18 are part of the same proposal. At least that 720 per week, that's the only way to make sense of it.
I have a question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Now, this is just for code enforcement, so, you know, earlier you were talking about an employee for planning and zoning and for code enforcement, but we still have the issue of, even if you did that, you'd still be paying the contractor for, building inspection as well, so.
Right. So Randy wore 3 hats for the city of Statham. He was our code enforcement officer, he was our building inspector, and he was our planning and zoning coordinator. He was providing those 3 services that we're now contracting out for the city.
Well, one of my, and this, the mayor and I talked about this briefly, I didn't understand originally how code enforcement worked here. I couldn't understand why if we drive in the street, we might see, you know, a mattress piled up on the side of the road or something, and code enforcement wasn't writing it up. And what I learned was that we have reactive code enforcement instead of proactive. So they're not writing tickets, and they're not you know, going out and speaking to people saying, hey, clean up your mess, unless they're getting reported. So unless the council or a citizen or somebody actually comes in and files a report or emails a report, and Bureau Veritas is not actively going out and writing those tickets. And it looks like from the cost of having proactive code enforcement, where they actually go out and seek out, you know, troubled spots that are in violation, looking at these contracts, I mean, it can get pretty hefty, because right now, just for 18 hours a week at the lowest contract that we have in front of us, that's $34,560.
At a minimum.
At a minimum. So,
Yes.
So by the time you jump that up to, if you needed more than 18 hours, it gets costly fast. And I see both sides of the situation. There's problem areas in the city that I know people are just not going to complain about because people won't do that. You know, a lot of people just won't come in or won't send an email. They want to stay out of that sort of thing, and I understand that. So I see that side of it, but I also see the cost side of it as well. And then to just touch base really quickly on hiring an employee. You know, I've met people before, and I don't know him as well as some people do, but I would think that we feel like we do every other job and at least advertise it. If the council decided to go that route of hiring someone, I think that would be the proper way of handling things. So we get everybody a chance to apply. So that's just my thoughts on that. And I say that with no malice or anything against anyone. Right. When I say that, I would just think that the proper thing would be to advertise like we do other jobs.
Well, and the way this code enforcement works also is any complaint is not just that one citizen, that when they get that, and I've got reports on my desk, and I meant to have them for everyone, but she does a complete loop through the neighborhood, because she's not going to serve someone for having a vehicle sitting with no tags, and then 3 other neighbors have the same problem. She will serve every one of them, and then I get a report every week minimum, and with the address and what the present status is of each one of them. So, you know, if a citizen reports 1, we may have 10 citations in a general area.
Right.
So, but there again, if we're not utilizing them, I don't think we can complain that they're not fully doing their job. We've got to, I think we all need to do a better job. Put the paperwork in. I mean, write it up and let the staff here run with it. And then if they're not doing their job, but it is not a legal issue, then we hold them accountable and we find someone that can do the job. Next year, if the council still feels the same way, when it's budget hearings, then I think consider it then, but right now, we've got to stay within the budget.
When people, when there's a code enforcement complaint, is it turned in, can it be turned in anonymous, or the people have to put their name and address and?
You don't have to say who you want, just tell us the problem and the address.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can be a phone call. She'll take the phone call or contact because they share the responsibility. And if they don't want to say who, they just say the address, and they said, we'll send someone out to check it. And most of the time, I think that's what it is. I just want to let you know that this is what's going on.
Or they'll leave a number and say, can you update me of did it get better, or did they go out, and what were the findings?
I have one quick, question. Is HIJK providing services for any other cities our size? Or, do they have any references? It looks like,
They do, and I don't think it's in the file.
it looks like their equipment and materials and their execution strategy, that there's a vehicle, a cell phone, a computer, a city decal for the vehicles, and the city ID badge, which, are they gonna get one of our vehicles? Are they just gonna put a sticker or a magnet on theirs? I'm not following that.
I think that's, the gist of it I get is that they provide their vehicle, and I'm just guessing, but it looks like they need like a magnet or something to go in the vehicle in order to be recognized as a city contractor.
Are we providing the vehicle, cell phone, and computer, or they? No, they are. They're providing that. It says right there, the first item.
The other issue with one of the other proposals from Bureau Veritas, right now we pay whatever amount of time if they do take something to court, we pay based on the amount of time. The new proposals are based on a minimum of 2 hours. So what would have cost us maybe $75 for court could cost the city $250 or higher for a court appearance, a minimum of $250. So there again, code enforcement is not a moneymaker. It is an expense to the city. The upside to code enforcement is a city that people can be more proud of. That's the bottom line, there's no other way to look at it. If you don't have it, then everybody does what they want. If you have ordinances, which the city has, the same as most cities, code enforcement is how that is backed up or enforced. So maybe we all just need to do a little bit better job. Let's utilize what we have, is my recommendation. And then next year we consider if the city wants to hire an employee or 2 employees to do this. But I shudder to think of this, is the city just picking on me? Right now there's anonymity there. It's contracted out, and it's not just sent out to just one location. There is a surveillance that's being done. Everything that Bureau Veritas has put in the packet and offering, they're already doing at $50 an hour. So to sign a contract for $90 an hour, the city's not getting anything.
Right.
We're not getting anything more than we're already paying for. And if we're not using that service more, then shame on us.
So we have a contract with them for $50 an hour with no minimum.
Right.
But then a minimum of 28 hours is $75 an hour.
That was I think, the first proposal.
And a minimum of 17 hours is $85 an hour, but with no minimum, it's $50 an hour.
Yeah, that's what we're paying for now, is
And
whatever we
I'm
use.
not doubting when I say that, but that still makes very little sense as far as the tier structure goes.
And then if you look at the last page on that, $90, it jumps to $90 on
With a 2-hour minimum.
the tier 1, you have a 2-hour minimum.
As it goes down, the price goes up per hour. But with no minimum, we're paying them $50 an hour.
That was under the old contract agreed to in 2018.
So there's a possibility that at the next contract, that could change to one of these amounts, I would assume, based upon the current contract.
Right now, we're going basically month to month on the old contract,
Okay.
and that's what we're paying. I think the most that we pay is 75, but we've never hit that tier. With the new one, what they're saying is tier 3, a minimum that many hours a week. Tier 2 is X amount, and tier 1, which is, I think, the lowest that we utilize them. If we only give them 2 hours a week, we're gonna pay $90 an hour, and we're gonna pay $180. That is the way that it was presented. So, but the more we use them, the less we're gonna pay per hour, but obviously, the more money it's gonna cost the city.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
yeah. And, so right now, it's $50 an hour, and if we use them for 40 hours a week, do the math, that's what it's gonna cost the city.
They say how long the contract is good for?
It's just month to month right now, and that's what Hal told me, is you're on a month to month. But I'd like for you to sign another contract. Well, it's $75 an hour. And now the newest one is not up to $90 an hour. So, it's to our advantage just to keep doing what we're doing until such date that they say we're terminating the contract, or we terminate the contract. But then at that point, we better be shopping.
absolutely.
So,
We start shopping now.
well, we have that's the other one.
Yeah.
Is this other, proposal. I don't know of how many other city, companies that do that. I haven't really had the time to jump into that, but I could look into it and see who else does contract out code enforcement. And I can also find out, some references of the HIA services. HIJK.
I know. That on purpose.
LLC.
Some city officials should remember.
Is there any other questions or concerns on that? I can, as soon as I have more information, I can pass it on.
I know that, but I've got two questions.
Okay.
I understand that their house was auctioned off, sold or not sold, is that true?
Gone.
The house did not sell at auction.
Oh,
Did not sell?
Yeah, at the minimum price that we're asking for it in contract, I believe it states that Phil, Pichet, husband, has still got, I want to say 2 months to sell the house, from my understanding. They've got some people that are still interested.
two parties, they're doing, they're doing their own little study on how much it would cost them to do the changes that they want to do if they buy it. So,
The one complaint that their gentleman that was went by was that, I guess that the city had took up so much of this property right here that he would have no way to put in a driveway, and he was you know, basically naming off everything that is wrong. You know, the point is that you're getting it for a price, but we're not asking any more for it than what we got in it. We're not trying to make a profit off of it. But if, you know, somebody put it about 50,000 in, it's a really, really nice piece of property there. You know.
Okay, our next question is, we talked about an ad for a city clerk. Now, I take the Herald and I take the Wine Reviews, and I have not seen an ad yet for,
I have not advertised, I am working with GMA.
so
And I
GMA don't come through.
Well, it's a little better source than just putting it in an advertisement. So I have one interested party at this point.
That's my two questions.
Councilman Venable, some updates in your discussion?
Mayor, I'll be really brief. Recently, and it's in the council's packet tonight, recently the Beautification Tree Committee has been working towards becoming Tree City USA. One of the requirements for that is the tree ordinance. And Board of Lead Council, Mr. Campbell, has provided us with a tree ordinance, and it went before the tree committee. I also emailed it out to all committee members that I know of, that are current on the committee. And this previous committee meeting that we had, the committee voted to present and recommend the tree ordinance to the council, as you see it in the packet. I sent it to Mr. Campbell as well to go through legal counsel and make sure there was no red flags, and I don't believe there was anything there. But the idea behind it is to become Tree City USA, we had to budget, I believe it's $2 per capita, isn't that right? Mm-hmm. In the budget for trees, beautification, that sort of thing, which council voted to do in this current budget that we have. And then we have to have the mayor do a proclamation, such as Arbor Day, that sort of thing, for Tree City USA. And then lastly, the city needs to adopt an official tree ordinance. If you read over this ordinance, basically, the tree committee is a recommending body. So the mayor and the council, if there was any questions or anything of that nature, would have the final say, since the committee is only a recommending body. The mayor will have discretion to prune or remove trees that are deemed an immediate danger. So if there was something that needed to be taken down immediately because it was dying or wind started to blow it over, something of that nature, then it doesn't have to go back to the committee for recommendation. But it would allow the committee members to have recommendations on whether or not a tree is taken down before it is taken down. And that's kind of the short of what this ordinance is about. The last thing I wanted to say about the tree committee update, I'm sorry, I know I'm jumping ahead, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the discussion items. We're hoping to plant more trees this year, ornamental trees, kind of finalize locations, but part of adopting this ordinance would be adopting an official tree list, ornamental trees, and also large trees. And so far, there's been certain type of oaks and maples, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Foreman, but so far that's pretty much what's been planted as replacements for ones that have been taken down.
Yes, on the big side.
So hopefully in the winter, if everything goes correct, or just before the winter, when everything goes correctly, we got some volunteers that will come out and help do this, but also obviously, same as last year, we've got to have some help with the from the city and its employees to dig the holes, fit the trees in, and that sort of thing. But that's kind of the update. And I know it kind of jumps to discussion items, but, that was part of the tree committee update, so. And also, if possible, Mayor, can we put the tree ordinance on the website for people to read as a proposal?
This ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I mean, assuming the council is okay with that, I'm not trying to.
right now, everything has to go through, Simplicity to get anything posted. I sent out an email, requesting that at least, 2 or 3 people have access. So anything we want on, we have to send an email saying we want it posted, and it might be a day or 2 till they get it posted. So I'm trying to rectify that, and if we can get that done tomorrow, then we can scan this and put it out there for public. We can scan this to, I believe, our Facebook.
I also have it as Word or PDF.
You can do
I
that.
can send over to y'all.
Yeah. So,
Um,
but I'm trying to rectify that.
Mr. Campbell sent that over to me, I think, a Word document, so I can forward that over. It is, yeah.
Is that possible to send this ordinance in a Word document? Or,
Yeah, I can do that.
all right.
Or PDF, whatever format you want, I've got it both.
And just a quick correction, I noticed that, Councilmember Crawley's name is spelled wrong, he's got an O instead of an A, I think it's just a typo.
Where's that at?
Last page of the tree ordinance, it's the signature page.
Okay, because I was looking on the minutes and I didn't see it. All right. Get that, we'll have that corrected for the vote. There it is. All right. In your packet, there's an update from the library. Basically from Susie, Duke, reporting that they are moving forward with the planning stage. And they're hoping that they will be able to start, award the contract and begin soon. So, they required a 30-day bid process. And, they will be closed to the public once that construction starts. I think most of their hours are by appointment anyway, at this point, but, she says they're progressing. I don't know if there's any questions on that or not.
I'm assuming that it was the pandemic that slowed this down?
Must have been with us with you in like April?
Yes.
I hold comment.
It's a rush to get out of the police department.
So as far as the planning and zoning fees, the discussion, this was something that goes back to May. And I think there was a question as to whether or not we could provide others. And I think that Hal kind of redid it. It was a one-page fee, planning and zoning fee schedule. And again, this was something that, as part of the $16,000 contract with Jerry Weiss, he sat here with myself and some other employees and went through line item for line item, and it is now a 3-page document Some of the things were thrown into a lump sum, which wasn't, we felt was not fair to the public, because if they just want to put a fence up, they shouldn't have to pay for, fence and electric, for instance. If they wanted to put a pole in, there was a lump sum, because it was based on an assumption. If you had a pole, you were gonna have a fence. If you had a pole, you were gonna have electric, and so on. And somebody just putting in a little, more or less wading pool, 3 foot deep, and it was not gonna have a filter. So, so it was separated out, and this is something that will be on the September, I believe it's 20th, is our council meeting. Might be wrong on that. No, 3rd, 12th, 15th. Yeah, it'll be the 15th. But those are all the fees, and it's a little more in depth than what Hal had proposed. Some of Hal's fees I felt were a little high. The other side of that coin, he felt some of ours were a little low, but I think overall, the research that was done, and we are very competitive with all the municipalities in our general area of what they are charging. So that is what's in your packet, and you know that you have some time to look it over between now and the actual meeting on these.
Where would this fence, be, for instance? I was looking for it, I didn't see it.
What did you have?
Oh, this, I'm sorry, I'm confusing permits, the zoning. The zoning fees are more for builders.
Okay.
And following that map, I apologize. Not the first time I've confused the permit fee, but we did the same thing with the permit fees, where we separated it out and you pay for what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Versus just a package deal and you pay that fee. The zoning and planning fees are pretty much the same way, where they're not packaged out, but they are competitive, or more in line with what other municipalities. But this goes in line with our official zoning map up there. So, and we, you know, already have some interest since our moratorium has been lifted.
Yeah. Are we going to change our regular permit fees at the same time?
They were voted in, the end of June.
Oh, we did it already, okay.
This was an oversight on my part, that this was not included in that packet. But,
Mayor, I have 2 questions. I think hopefully Mr. Campbell maybe can enlighten me on this. Some of the encouragements say co-location of small wireless facility, and I'm just curious, is that something like?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Councilman.
I'm sorry, on page 3 of the permit fees,
Okay.
underneath the encouragements, as co-location, replacement new utility pole associated, with small wireless facility, I'm assuming that's something like 5G?
Well, any small wireless facility, I mean, 5G, 4G, whatever,
But, I mean, is that actually on poles? Is that what it's talking about? I'm assuming, since,
it would be the replacement of the pole. It's not the device, it's the replacement of the pole.
We've had a cell tower been replaced with.
okay, all right, that makes sense, I got it. And then the other question I had on page 2, what is, it says dedication of easement standalone by resolution of council, $50, what would that be?
So, for example, if somebody wanted to dedicate and offer to the city an easement, the city is not seeking the easement, they just offer it to us in connection with maybe a development of some kind. They would have to pay a fee of $50 to make the offer, and then we'd still have to vote to accept it.
Okay.
They have to pay the fee just for us to even accept it.
would that be like easements for sidewalks or?
Sidewalks, could be sewer, could be water lines, could be green space, could be a litany of things.
Okay.
The only thing it can't be is public streets, because there's a separate fee for that.
So, I guess we have another 12 days that can look at over and bring up questions. So basically, you've covered the tree ordinance, and we'll get that posted, both to Facebook and our webpage. Do you want to add anything else to the, to that discussion?
I didn't ask if anybody had any questions. I apologize for that, but does anybody have any questions for me on that?
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about it being a tree city. Are you going to explain to the citizens what that actually means and entails? Is there a cost to the city for that?
Well, the cost to the city for that is, short of it, the cost to the city for that, we're already paying because you're spending money to plant trees and do beautification. And that's, I don't know for sure, I'd have to look it up, I can look it up on my phone. Do you know if there's a cost to actually get Tree City?
I think it's a nominal $50 application fee.
Mm-hmm.
And what Tree City does, what it does, one thing that I like that it does for the city, it tells community, it tells the citizens that we have an established, that we care about our community, we care about the trees, we care about what's going on, and not every town has one, and it is a little bit of work to get one started, but it just lets everyone know that, we.
Didn't Jessica Cook start that? Didn't we already, she brought that above in front of the council about becoming a tree city.
I think she talked about that at one point, but it like Councilmember McCormick said, it kind of provides the city with, it's kind of like being a bird sanctuary in a lot of ways that you care about green space, and you want to make sure that the tree canopy is not just cut down and done away with. So the idea behind the tree ordinance is to try to provide some protection so that stuff like that doesn't happen, where, trees just come in and we clear cut them and do away with them completely without any kind of oversight. But I think the fee itself is like, you're saying, if anything, it's minimal, but I can look that up on the phone and let you know.
Is there an annual fee once you become accepted?
Let me look that up and give you an answer here.
Because I was trying to think back when this first was brought up months ago. I think there is an annual fee, but I want to be clarified on that. And is the tree committee planning on expanding outside of the general area that you're currently looking at?
Yes.
Such as?
Well, the committee wants to finish up what we're doing on Broad Street, and then the goal is to expand into the park area. And then as the money becomes available, it is funded by the council for the future, we'll go out to other streets, wherever there's vacant areas for trees to be planted. And right now, what the original committee was doing was replacing trees that had been taken down on Broad Street. So when it was taken down, they replaced them. So the committee now wants to put ornamental trees up. The idea is finish on Broad Street and then out here on Railroad in the bare spots, put ornamental trees in those areas. And then as time and money allows, hopefully we can get the volunteers, and hopefully if the council approves it for next year, we'll have money allotted to go out into the parks and expand it out. But right now, the immediate goals are those that I just said, and we're working on getting long-term goals. And they're public meetings, so anybody that wants to come to them, certainly welcome to come and ask questions. One of the other things that this ordinance has is it'll formalize the committee so that there's a set number of people that are on it that will be appointed instead of it being kind of a loose group of volunteers. So, just becoming a little more formal so that when there's votes taken and people give their input. This ordinance will give that some backbone, I guess, is the best way to put it.
I have two things. One, I'll just remove myself from this position and from a citizen standpoint ask the question. Is there a downside to a Tree Seat USA?
No, I don't particularly know one. I haven't read anything about there being a downside. Again, the rules are the $2 per capita, the tree ordinance, and we have to do a proclamation every year, which is basically, doing a proclamation. So, outside of that, other than, which I'm looking at now, any cost associated with it, I think is a small penny that I'm trying to find out.
I'll wait till you find that. I have a second question.
You go ahead and ask.
In the creation of the tree committee, section 3, and I'm looking at this as a mayor. The tree committee consists of the director of public works department and 7 individual residents of the city appointed and confirmed. My concern is if the director of public works is part of that committee, and I don't know if you can answer this, counselor, but would they be on the clock, so to speak, because they are there in a capacity of the city, I think.
The short answer to the question is yes. It would be in the clock.
Yeah, I think the idea behind the tree committee is that the 7 people would work with the public works department. That unless they wanted to come to, because it's going to really start with public works anyway. Public works is going to say, hey, there's a dead tree over here, it needs to be taken down. So I don't think it would necessarily require them to show up at the meeting. It's just the committee and the public works department work together.
Okay. But if it were necessary for them to be there, they would be there in a paid capacity. That might be once in 12 months, but I just want to know from a city standpoint and the ramifications.
So far, we haven't had to have a meeting that I can recall.
Well, that's mine too. Find the other answer.
I'm looking on the application page. It's going to require me to create a login to see if there's an actual cost. I'll get that information, and if I can find it before we leave tonight, I'll let you know. But certainly by next meeting, before there's a possible vote, I definitely have information.
Any others on the tree ordinance discussion? Okay. I think at this time, is there a need for executive session, counselor?
There is, Mayor.
Okay. I'd like a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Make the motion to go into executive session for potential litigation.
Seconded by Council Patty. And those in favor? Okay. Motion carries. We will Counselor?
The mayor and city council, city of Statham adjourned in closed session to discuss matters involving pending, litigation, potential settlement of claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial actions, which are protected under the Open Meetings Act. No votes were taken by the council during executive session. A copy of the resolution and affidavit will be included with the minutes.
Thank you. At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn?
We gotta do the executive.
We need a motion to come out of executive session, okay?
Okay.
I'll make the motion, we come out of executive session.
And all those in favor? My
I'll make the
apologies.
motion to adjourn.
Okay. And Ms. Hattie, second. All those in favor?
There we go.
Thank you all.
See?